one of the things that drove me away from Christianity is hypocrisy.
Mm.
Child. And going back to the whole church family thing, child, don't even get me because look, you might want to get your teacup, child, because look, this shit is piping hot. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About Us with Uche. My name is Uche, I am your host. Today I am with my dear friend John. John is someone that I've known for a couple of years here in the Houston area, and he was so kind enough to leave work and leave everything he's got going on today to record with me. Thank you so much, John. And as you know, John, we've had a lot of technical difficulties today, Chad. When I tell you the devil is out to get me, Chad, I feel like the devil knows that what the things that we're going to be talking about is going to be some like deep stuff.
Exactly.
And the devil just working overtime, but Chad, we persevered. Okay?
Exactly.
So anyway, thank you so much for being here, John. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is John. I am from Houston, Texas. I am very glad, very humbled that you asked me to be a part of this. So I do appreciate it. And yeah, whenever you're ready, I am ready to get started.
Thank you. Yes, so you're from Houston, Texas. Could you please give us like your background? And feel free to not share any intimate information that you don't feel comfortable with.
Okay.
Because the word is watching, Chad.
Listen.
Okay.
No, I like I said, was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Haven't really, done anything too exciting outside of being born and raised in Houston, Texas. Family is fairly small, so about the vast majority of my family and home life was basically centered around being in Houston, and growing up in this heat. And
the heat is atrocious.
Listen, you get used to it though. They say it's good for your skin. That's all I keep telling myself. But so is drinking water and being in AC.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, there's really not much to tell. You already know I'm big on my plants and my home life. And
yes, you are
pretty much a homebody. So
you are. I honestly enjoy hanging out with you a lot because you have this really chill vibe at all times. Every time we're together, like certain people when you're with them, the energy is just off.
No, I know.
You just be sweating for no reason, even though 30 degrees outside, but you just hot. So for me, every time I hang out with you, it always feels so organic.
I appreciate that.
You don't give me any type of stress. I don't see any negative energy flowing from you. And that's actually. Go ahead.
I was gonna say no. It's enough going on outside.
Okay.
To, mess with your energy already. I'm definitely not trying to add to that for anybody. So
of course, and that's kind of what I am about as well. Try to be mindful what energy I put out there because, I always talk about spirituality, we're all the essence of God.
Yes.
So when I'm hurting somebody else, I am hurting a different version of me in a different form. But yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this because you are very spiritual. As you guys know, I am a huge spiritual type of person. I've started my journey into spirituality a few years ago. I feel like 2013 and 2014 were the years of turnaround for me. There's a whole lot of things that happened in the past, and I've kind of talked about them on my podcast and YouTube in the past.
Right.
So for me, whenever I meet somebody else who's on that path of spirituality, it lights my eyes up.
Yeah.
I'm usually very curious, okay, what is your path of spirituality?
Gotcha.
How have you gotten to here?
Gotcha.
And things like that. But the thing interesting about you, though, is that you don't just practice spirituality, you practice African spirituality.
Yes.
Which is, of course, on its own, not a problem or not anything objectively wrong with it, even though Hollywood tries to portray it as negative.
Yes.
But what's very interesting about you specifically is because you're Black American, you're American. Your parents are Americans.
Yes.
Siblings American, born and raised in America. You've never left America before?
Never.
and somehow you're able to pick up African spirituality, a practice that is across the globe. Do you want to touch up on that? How you came about that,
How
please?
did I come about? Honestly, I would say similar to you. My kind of spiritual reawakening, I guess you'd say, started around 2013, 2014. Excuse me. And I would honestly say initially when I started to kind of get more into, I guess around that age, I was maybe what, 22 or 21, 22, around that age, you kind of start to see the world differently and you kind of start to figure out or try to figure out, you know, who you are as a person still because your teenage years are more so spent, I guess, trying to figure out who you want to be outside of your parents and, you know, kind of their projections onto you. And then kind of like in your 20s, of course, they say it's like your time to kind of fuck up and make mistakes and everything like that. But it's also, you know, a time to like figure out exactly who you are or who you want to be during this period of your life. And so that was around the same time when I was trying to figure out all those things. I was starting to get more into like working with plants and meditating, all the kind of typical woo-woo things that people are, that Urban Outfitters is, you know, making and capitalizing on right now.
I know, right? Are they are they called the hippies?
Hippies or, you know, like I said, I like to use the term woo-woo because it just sounds kind of funny to me.
Okay.
But no, when I started working more with plants, it felt like a very spiritual thing when I was working with them. And it felt very spiritual to just put my energy into something and watch it in turn, grow and, you know, watch it flourish. And so from there, my work with plants kind of led me down a more, a path to just kind of wanting to know like what our indigenous practices were. And so of course I went, you know, to Google, of course, and that wasn't the safest place or the safest option. The internet in general is not the safest place to learn more about our past. You definitely have to be heavy on the discernment of who is and is not a trusted source. And so from Google, I kind of just ran into some different podcasts, of course, and different authors and different books, and did as much reading as possible, still doing as much reading as possible.
Sorry, guys, we had another technical difficulty. It's been a very challenging day today, right? It's very interesting because, speaking of spirituality, I see the noise around me. I call it noise. Like, I do believe that there are certain forces that are constantly going against, like, intentional. It's a very intelligent force that is intentionally trying to prevent you from elevating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, prevent you from waking up from the slumber that the world is plagued with. And I believe that, and this is something I've always known prior to today, of course.
Of course.
I believe that the more you fight, like the closer you are to being enlightened and being awake and becoming a better version of yourself, one with God, the more intense that the force goes against you.
Gotcha.
And I feel like I've experienced this in so many different ways in my life. Like, you have no idea. Like, there are certain things that I would actually experience. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely, this ain't no physical shit. This is some like deep ass spiritual shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like you've been here, you know, all day. You know, we've been doing this shit. Okay. We've had all kinds of technical difficulties. We had camera problems and we had microphone problems. And mind you, I've been using these mics for like almost 2 years now, recording.
Wow.
And I've never had this. Yesterday I had a problem. Today I'm having a problem as well. The topic yesterday was spirituality. The topic today is spirituality. So I'm diving into like some real deep shit and it's coming from my soul.
Gotcha.
And I feel like there's like this element or entity or whatever it is, or energy that is this perverse energy that is trying to make sure to sabotage. And I've always known that, like prior to this, like as you embark on this journey, it's going to be a treacherous one. It's going to be a very bumpy one.
Right.
Is it something that you're willing to embark on? Of like, let's do it. Do you understand?
For the challenge.
Yeah. But I better watch my tongue before before this damn energy. Fuck you. I'm still doing me, bitch. Okay. But anyway, apologies for that.
No
The
worries.
camera cut off, and hopefully it's not going to do that again.
No worries.
So yes, you were saying, and I heard everything that you said prior to that. You did mention something important. You said that your 20s, especially your early 20s, are your years to find yourself, because that's your first taste of independence, especially at
Very much
18,
so.
19, when you move away from college. You make friends and go through your first real heartbreaks and things like that. School, college is no longer high school.
Right.
Some people get their first jobs, and then when you graduate, you try to nurture those relationships while you try to find yourself. You went through that path, and for you, plants was like an initiator, like a catalyst to that.
Oddly enough, like I said, working with plants was a very like spiritual thing for me. I from there started getting into meditating, and like a lot of people that first get into like the whole aspect of like spirituality, I was playing around with crystals and stuff like that. Crystals are very pretty. Crystals are fun to look at. They don't all the time resonate with me and my energy, but I do still keep a few around because, like I said, they're nice to look at. And this isn't to, knock anyone that works with crystals. I'm sure that they have their own energy that they possess and everything like that. But from there, from working with plants to, starting to, meditate and just kind of find my spiritual footing, I progressed to, working with crystals, and then I kind of dialed it back a bit and focused more on like the plant aspect and how that kind of crosses over into the spiritual aspect, and then of course the more indigenous practices that we would do prior to that we might have lost, or just that we may have done prior to the whole coming over here or being forced to come over here, colonization, everything like that, transatlantic slave trade and all of that. Like I said, oddly enough, it was plants that did it for me, and then from there, kind of research, understanding, and like I said, that's an ongoing thing for me right now.
So was there like a specific trigger event that did you wake up one morning and decide, you know what, I'm gonna just go find our own truth, our own spirituality, or?
It was more of a progression for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was more so. It started as just kind of a curiosity. And then from that curiosity, actually starting to implement some of the practices that I was able to kind of do on my own. Because a lot of these things are sacred. A lot of these things you have to be initiated into. Because I'm not initiated into anything, I wouldn't dare, disrespect anyone's religion, craft, spirituality, spiritual practices, or anything like that. By just, taking it upon myself to feel like I can do it myself. Because that can also be extremely dangerous. So the things that I could do on my own that I did not need to be, initiated into, I would do. And the results that I would see from that kind of pushed me further into wanting to know more and wanting to practice more of it. But like I said, it's still, an ongoing thing for me, and it's still very hard to find sources that you can trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, were you born Christian? Your family Christian, and you went to church. Was it Catholic or Orthodox or
Macedonia Baptist Church?
Oh, Chad. Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
God.
Lord have mercy. Yeah, I'm one of them people. No shade. Okay. Look.
All the shade.
All the shade.
No.
Well, then all the shade. Shit.
You know what? No. I shouldn't say that because my mother would probably kill me, and so would my grandmother. But I appreciate church culture For what it did.
Why? What is it about? It's interesting you say church culture.
Very specific and
Very
in
specific.
saying church culture.
Because there's a church culture. There's not necessarily a Christian culture.
Precisely.
Okay.
Black church culture is unlike any other,
Okay.
to be very honest. And there's literally no other way to put that. There's a reason church culture for us and just church for us in general is so vastly different from, what people of other races or ethnicities are doing. Church culture for me created a sense of both camaraderie, obviously, and fellowship and, a family aspect. But it was also something that also created a huge level of fear and just, it brought a lot of stagnancy to, is that a word? Stagnancy. It made me feel stagnant in just my development and my growth spiritually and as a person. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But church culture, for the most part, was a big part, such a huge part of my growing up and my understanding, us and our customs, or I should say maybe instead of saying us, just understanding like the Black American culture and what it was that I was a part of, because it was and still is something that's very special, and it's something that you literally would not be able to replicate or find anywhere else.
So you're saying that the church culture, especially for Black American, is part of the American Black experience per se,
1000%.
but not necessarily like there's no spiritual. Well, I don't want to say there's no spiritual essence, but for you specifically, like you didn't fulfill that spiritual urge.
It did, not necessarily from a biblical standpoint, though, more so from just the level of fellowship that I would feel. The level of just the energy of it all. For me, church culture wasn't about what necessarily the preacher was talking about. It was more so like sometimes it was his cadence. It was the way that he was speaking sometimes. It was the organ coming in at the end of his sermon when he's about to wrap up, and the rest of the church kind of joining in with that. It was about the choir, listening to people sing. It was about the director. It was about, sometimes the church gossip or what you hear in the fellowship hall afterwards. Like, it was those things as opposed to, like I said, the biblical aspect. The biblical aspect probably was the part of it that made me a bit apprehensive about the Christian experience and identifying as a Christian. But the culture of church itself and being around, my church family and, the Black American aspect of it was what created a sense of home.
That part, yeah. I was just about to say it felt like home.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's something that you never lose.
And as a non-American, I've seen a lot of Black Americans subscribe to that. There's a lot of, I've seen a lot of Black Americans that actually don't even believe in church or whatever. Like they're not spiritual at all.
Right.
And it's not just by their actions or they're just them being verbal, but at the same time too, they have this deep reverence.
Yes.
And affinity towards going to church. Like they don't ever miss church.
That's
Like it could be like the singing, the choirs, and or even the chit chat, gossips, the potlucks and things like that. They're big with it, even though their personal lives don't reflect that.
Right.
It's like something that they're very drawn to, and it's part of what they were raised, especially here in the South.
Yes.
Like it's a familial, cultural thing that speaks home.
Exactly.
Okay, so what is it about that the biblical aspects and teachings of church that didn't resonate with you, and to the point that you felt like, okay, there's got to be more that I can find outside these walls of home,
right?
Because walking away from home, because home is where your heart is, right? And it feels right. There's good food. There's good people that you're familiar with and things like that. But for you to say that there's something deep inside of me that is not fulfilled here, I'm going to just leave home and venture into somebody else's possible home to hopefully see that. That's a lot. It takes a lot of balls for a person to be able to do that. So what is it for you that the biblical teachings of your church family didn't give you?
Safety.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Of course, obviously, I identify as I identify as homosexual. But just, anyone, I think it's fairly obvious and, fairly well known that anyone that identifies as anything other than heterosexual probably hasn't had the best experience with church and sometimes church culture and just Christianity in general. And a lot of that stems from the way that it's taught and presented to us and who it is more so that's delivering the message. And because I didn't necessarily have the right people delivering the message, because of course this message is still coming from someone else's interpretation, and they are basically telling their interpretation to the rest of the masses or the congregation. The overall interpretation that I was receiving from multiple places that I'm supposed to consider home was that my existence was demonic. It was, an abomination. It
You're going to
was
hell.
all of these other typical things that, like I said, every person that does not identify as, heterosexual probably has experienced. And so for me, I was like, for this to be something that's been within me since as long as I can remember, and something that I felt for as long as I can remember, and for this, I mean being not a heterosexual. I don't understand why I would put myself through the constant bashing and the constant just pain of being in a space that I'm told I'm supposed to be, comfortable in, told that, it's supposed to be a safe haven for me. And I'm coming here and I'm not feeling safe once this person gets on to, his pedestal and starts telling me about all the different ways that my existence is one of damnation, basically. And so that was where the lack of comfort came in. And because that is such a huge aspect of who I am, like, yes, being black is probably first and foremost going to be the main part of me that determines the way that I navigate the world and the spaces that I'm in. But then followed right behind that is the sexual identity or sexual orientation. And that also plays a huge aspect in not only how I deal with the world, but how the world kind of deals with me as well. And so when I am being celebrated on one end because, being black, coming from black church culture, that's a celebration, that's a celebratory thing. But then all of a sudden, the thing that also makes me who I am or is a huge aspect of who I am and literally will determine...
Makes you an other.
It ostracizes me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I should come here and feel ostracized for any reason, especially one that is completely out of my control, that I have absolutely no say so in. And so that was the thing that definitely took me completely out of it, especially because if this is supposed to feel like home for me and this is supposed to be a place that I'm supposed to feel safe and comfortable and secure, and it's supposed to be a place where I can come and seek guidance from, that's not something that I would want to bring a partner into as well, because trust and believe, me being me and me existing to the fullest and existing completely and comfortably in who I am, I'm going to live as proudly about my existence and every aspect of myself that makes me who I am. And part of that is also bringing my partner into that. And I want my partner to feel just as comfortable in my home as I would want to feel in my home. And so when I don't have that, that makes me say, okay, I don't have this here. This isn't necessarily my home per se. So I need to find what feels more like home for me, or just create that home for myself at that point.
Preach, man. I felt that. No, seriously, I felt that very deep because that's such a very solid, strong dichotomy that home being defined as where your heart is, yet doesn't feel like home
At all. So I have to remove the hard aspect from it. Like,
Exactly.
nah.
But there's still like a part of that home that resonates to your being, you know, because at the end of the day, you're around family, you know, you may not literally be related by blood,
Right.
but you are related by struggle, ethnicity,
Experiences.
experience,
Yeah.
you know, like as black people, even though I'm an immigrant black person, I still relate to that otherness to a certain extent. So being around people like you who share that collective struggle, there's a sense of safety there. But then at the same time too, as a black person who's also queer, who is also queer, there's that reminder that you may be one of us, but child, you're not really one of us
Not
like
really.
that. So you better not let people know that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
because you're gonna be
like,
sitting outside.
keep that to yourself.
Chat.
We don't want to hear that. No.
And you can only keep up with the charade for so long.
For so long, yeah.
And to a certain extent, like, okay, what the fuck am I doing? Like,
What am I
this
doing?
niggas ain't checking for me like that.
Like,
You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously.
yeah.
You know, like, I want to connect. I want to be, like, you want to be yourself at all times. Because I can't, I was telling this to my sister a few weeks ago. I literally cannot imagine a life where I can't be myself.
Yeah.
But then there are conditions to your being. Like, you can be yourself as long as you don't do this, and that.
Exactly.
And what's the point of that? You know what I'm
is the
saying?
point,
So I
right?
definitely do commend you for that, right? I definitely do. Same things are also, to a certain extent, applicable to me. My sexuality is definitely one of the biggest reasons why I was like, okay, this is malarkey, whatever it is that I got going
Yeah.
on here. I'm just walk away and do my own thing.
Right.
But it's not the concrete thing. I feel like for me, one of the biggest things that drove me away from Christianity, I don't identify as Christian, by the way, and I've talked about this on previous episodes. One of the things that drove me away from Christianity is hypocrisy. Child. And going back to the whole church family thing, child, don't even get me, because look, you might want to get your teacup, because look, this shit is piping hot. A lot of those people that reprimand you and ostracize you within the church community are be down as hell.
Some of the shittiest people on the planet are literally in the church right now.
Child.
Saving souls at that. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember growing up when I was in the single digits as a kid back in Nigeria, I would see the gossiping, the bickering, the messy bitch vibe. You know what I'm saying? And, like, at what point does this exemplify Christ?
Right.
Did Jesus do this?
Right.
And also, if you know Nigerians, and I'm not trying to talk shit about Nigerians, but Nigerians are very vain and very pretentious. It's all about the ego, and you got to be flashy and things like that. And I've fallen prey to a victim to that mentality as well. I'm trying to be as intentional as possible to get rid of some of that mentality for my own well-being.
Right.
But it's like when you see people who have to drive a certain type of car, have to have a certain type of house, have to live a certain type of lifestyle. You have to show up and show out. And at what point do you incorporate humility, which is like one of the essence of Christianity, or one of the things that Christ brought to the table.
Right.
So that hypocrisy for me is like, okay, even like back when I was in the single digits, I'm like, okay, I don't see the correlation between what you're saying
Right.
versus what you're living. And that always rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And don't even get me started with the whole homosexual thing, Chad. Because when I tell you, okay, when I tell you, I don't think the general community is ready to have that conversation, but I'm gonna
Listen.
say it anyway, okay?
Listen.
When I tell you, half these people at church, they be having wives and kids,
Listen.
okay? And this is also one of the reasons why it gave me the motivation to be myself.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because the alternative is to be this shit that y'all doing,
And
especially when I don't walk
too
my
much.
own path, and
Yeah.
I've carried my cross, and I know how heavy it is. I know how many times I don't cried on my own. I felt loneliness. I felt pain. I felt misery. I felt that I know what it feels like to be a nobody.
Yeah.
I have hit rock bottom a couple of times in my life. I know what it feels. I know what my pain feels.
That's real.
And somehow I know I was able to persevere through all of that without anybody being on my side.
Right.
And after I've gone through all of that, I'm trying to dumb myself down for these people. You know, and I'm not even trying to be as condescending right now, but I'm also being realistic. Like, you don't even have the balls to be yourself. I don't owe you anything.
Correct.
So I'm gonna just go ahead and do me.
Correct.
So this home may be an illusion, or actually, this home may be a home ideally for somebody, but it ain't for me.
Correct.
So I'm gonna pack my bags and I'm gonna go somewhere else and find me. And that is actually one of the things where that jump started my journey to spirituality in 2013. I had like a big falling out with my family, and when I think about that, I still get goosebumps as to how everything just went down. And I called 2013 my U year, like a U. Like I was just going spiraling down in 2013, and then boom, went back up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna talk about all of that experience in details later on. But I'm more interested in when you've had that moment of realization that this home right now is not the home that is home enough for me. So I'm gonna go out and venture out. Why specifically African spirituality? And I do know that, as Black people, we all share a common heritage from Africa and things like that. But it's also very unheard of. I'm sure there's a lot of Americans who practice African spirituality, but it's also not the mainstream. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I can understand a person like me conforming to African spirituality, which, by the way, I have a great deal of respect for. But I've always talked about how it's very disrespectful how Hollywood portrays African spirituality in the most nefarious, demonic, vile ways. Which I can even understand to a certain extent, but it's even worse when I see Black people in Africa perpetuate that fuckery. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
In spite of all of that negative tainting, of African spirituality, what is it about African spirituality specifically that just drew you in, apart from the fact that we all share that African heritage?
Definitely, obviously, it's the heritage aspect, but I think it's the idea that through a more indigenous practice or indigenous practices to like me and my people, that I would be able to heal not only myself, but also be able to heal past generations and their traumas, and hopefully by extension be able to heal future generations as well. A lot of what I feel like I experienced just from the church, of course, but just in the ways of spirituality and religion in general, I feel like came from a place of trauma. And also with like me seeing like my mother and my grandmother and kind of the things that they dealt with within the church as well. And also witnessing a few things happen inside the church. I feel like it all came from a place of trauma, generational trauma, and just a place of just not being healed as a people. And so when I like, of course, started to look more into more traditional practices, the main thing that stuck out for me was the ability to be able to commune with ancestral spirits, and by extension also being able to heal what their traumas may have been, and also heal my own personal traumas as well.
So you believe that there's a continuous relationship with the ancestors, even though they're physically gone?
Physically, yes. The physical form of them, completely gone. Like, that part I get. I don't believe that, like, your spirit, your energy, whatever you want to call it, your aura, I don't believe that any of that actually disappears. I do feel like, however you may view it, not like you specifically, but however anyone may view it in general, whether you believe that you are reincarnated and, you basically live out this cycle in different ways, whether it be as a human, as an animal, as an insect, or whether you believe, we just die and turn into a tree, or we basically just die and then that's it. I do feel like it's hard for me to believe that energy just completely goes away, but also in a lot of the work that I have done, I've noticed that I do feel very familiar energies around me, familiar in ways that, like, it feels like a family member is there with me, or a family member that I may have been in contact with before, or whose energy I may have experienced when they were actually here. In the work that I've done with my ancestral spirits, it does feel like that family energy is still there, maybe from that particular person, or sometimes it just feels like a collective.
And all of that has been able to bring you peace and healing and all of that.
It's brought some healing, I will say. There's a lot of healing that still needs to be done.
Amen.
And I really think that that's just an ongoing thing, considering the amount of
Never
shit
ended. Oh my God.
like that we have to heal from, and the amount of shit that has kind of been forced on us.
Generational, familial, societal, personal, financial. We gotta hear from Hollywood and their BS. We gotta hear from Instagram, these thoughts on Instagram.
Exactly.
We gotta hear from the diseases out here, from COVID. Chat. The mess is full.
There's a lot of healing that if we have to do it. I mean, specifically, like, as people of, the African diaspora, anti-blackness is everywhere. They hate us no matter where we go, to be very honest with you. And then we also have a lot of internalized hate that we have to unlearn as well. And so the amount of work that requires is, honestly, it feels impossible. I'm not gonna lie. It does feel very impossible. But the amount of work that I feel like we could do personally that could hopefully expand from just us doing our work personally and kind of working on ourselves and our personal traumas, and then expanding outwardly from there. I feel like there's a lot more. I feel like it could be a lot more powerful than it probably sounds or seems like. The work that I feel like I have done thus far has more so been personal, and it's been a lot of healing my own self and my own particular like spiritual traumas. On a personal level, I am still working on understanding how I can do that on a more familial level, as in like current family things that I could probably have a hand or work to undo and heal the ones outside of me from. But then it's also like, that's me trying to come at it from that aspect, less from, I don't know, the non-Christian way of healing. It just, not everybody's gonna be about that. And I don't even want to sit here and say like, oh, Christianity has just been like so divisive. Christianity has completely fucked us over as a people. Like, I don't want to knock Christians or Christian ideas or beliefs in any way, shape, or form. I do feel like it has been divisive because of the way that it was taken and completely misused by the people that basically forced us to come over here. And I do mean, obviously, the Western European idea of what Christianity is before, like I said, it was taken. Because I completely understand, that like Africans were practicing Christianity is a very, very old religion. And so I understand that like Africans were practicing Christianity a long time before like Western European, and they all went over there and basically took from us what was our way of life, essentially. And a lot of times it wasn't just them coming over there, it was basically kind of brought to them, but either way it was taken and used more so as a weapon. So I do mean, when I say Christianity has been like divisive, I do mean in the weaponized version of Christianity has been divisive against us. But I also feel like there has been, in a strange way, a way that Christianity has also been beneficial for us. Just because when we were forced to come over here, Christianity and the Bible in and of itself still provided us with something that we could use to still be able to communicate with one another, and still be able to find some type of camaraderie with this particular text. And so I don't want to like completely bash it, but For the most part, the overall message that's been given to me from Christianity hasn't exactly been the greatest.
Yeah.
But that's because it's a message that's coming from. It's a message that's basically been completely misinterpreted, and like I said, been weaponized against us.
Do you believe that there is a concrete truth in the Bible that is in conformity to your sense of spirituality, but this truth has been diluted and possibly corrupted by people reading the Bible in the dark and upside down? I mean, let's be honest. We talk about Christianity as though it's like a whole entity, but then at the same time too, within Christianity there's so many different denominations.
Very much.
And it's like a lot of them don't even agree with each other's doctrines. I feel like
Very
the only
true.
thing that they have in common is just like the belief in Christ as the one and only Son of God
Son
and
of
things
God,
like
yes.
that. But even at that reverence to Christ is the practice is very, very different.
Yeah.
I've seen people who compete against each other, you know, for the same Christ. Like,
Which
it
is
almost
weird.
feel like, Chad,
Yeah.
what? You know, so as an outsider watching, like, okay, yeah, no, yeah, confused.
Yeah.
Get your shit together and I'll come back. And that's no
Right.
disrespect, but that's just what it looks like for an outsider. You trying to convince me that your way of life is the right way of life.
Right.
Look at through, Chad, did you look in the mirror? Because the mess is full.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly.
So, but all of that chaos and lack of congruence apart, there's still, in my opinion anyway, there's still a concrete truth within the Bible. And I believe this also is there present in the Torah, you know, used by the Judaism, Jewish people, and the Quran used by Islam. You know, these Abrahamic religions, in my opinion, speak the same truth. But unfortunately, the fallible nature of mankind, you know, has corrupted that. We've weaponized Christianity or religion in general to subdue women in the name of patriarchy, to subdue gay people in the name of heteronormativity, to subdue children, you know, in the name of kids are nobody, you know, like they don't contribute to society.
Right.
We subdued the others, the minorities and things like that, you know. The richer you are, the whiter you are, the more heterosexual you are, the closer you are to Jesus. The whole thing has been, well, in the Western world anyway, Christianity has been whitewashed to the point, like, you know, even literally the picture of Jesus has been whitewashed.
White Jesus.
Okay, and I've been to Palestine, and Palestine, and this, which is where Jesus is from, or he was born in Palestine. They look more like mocha, like what you would consider typical Hispanic. You know what I mean? And considering the fact that Jesus was also poor, he's probably outside of the sun a lot. You know, so it's probably he was darker than the average Palestinian. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly.
And I remember reading in Isaiah that Jesus had brown skin or skin of bronze and curly hair, and his face is marked, and he was without beauty. Like, I swear to God, I actually remember reading that as a child.
Definitely says
Which is not conform to the nonsense that we keep seeing. Blue eye, blonde hair, pink lips. Okay? Jesus looked like he about to take your girl, Chad.
Right.
I see Jesus looking fine as hell, like, okay. You know? So when you see these images, people like us who don't conform to those things,
Right.
especially considering our history, how we've literally been robbed of everything we have, including our identity, our sense of spirituality. It's like a constant reminder that you're not good enough to make it to heaven. And if you are lucky to make it to heaven, child, you're going to be sitting in the back with the cook. Okay? The people in the front will be the people with the blue eyes and the pink lips and, you know, blonde hair and things like that. But I also do believe this is a fallible human nature, right? Misrepresenting what the Bible or religion actually represents. But the true concrete message is still in that book, in my opinion, which is why I still read my Bible religiously.
1000%.
And when I read my Bible, I do have this Bible study that I actually have 2 Bible studies that I go to every 2 weeks. I ask questions. I read with my own discernment, not what the preacher would say, not what my dad would say, not what my mom would say. I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? I have my own brain. The Spirit of God lives inside of me. Let the Spirit of God help me deduce and discern what is happening. And you will be surprised how a lot of that concrete message is still in there, but our fallible nature, just confuses us. The ego brings out the worst of us. Do you believe that or no?
Definitely.
And if do you believe that, or also do you feel like this is also in congruence to your personal belief in spirituality, in terms of African spirituality? Like, there is one truth, and that truth is not only present in African spirituality, but also present in the Abrahamic religions as well.
I would say yes, just because in what I've found, it definitely feels as though they're all of these religions, regardless of how separate they are, still feel as though they speak to one particular higher being. Whether you refer to that being as, God, or whether you see it as the universe, or, spirit, or whatever you may refer to it as, there's still one particular higher being that they all seem to reference.
When done right.
Correct. When done right. But at the same time, I'm not really sure that any of them do it right. And which could play again into just us as humans misinterpreting things.
And what is the right way as well?
I don't know that there is the right way, though. That's the thing. And I think that that's what causes a lot more of the confusion as well, is because we're all just trying to figure out what is the right way to exist. What is the right way to get to the next level, to reach nirvana. And it's not necessarily that the right way, because the right way to me insinuates or implies that there's only one way. And your way may not work for me. My way may not work for Jim, Janie, and, Jack. So I feel like, just as you said, finding the God within yourself and then working outward from there works for you. I feel like all of these religions, regardless of, again, how separate or how different they are, can still be used as tools in order to get to that level. But again, that's still a pretty sensitive, kind of iffy subject, because once we do reach that level, or once you do get to that point outside of this particular physical plane, how do we know what that looks like per se? And so you don't necessarily know what the end goal is or what the end goal looks like or what it feels like. And so all you're doing basically, and this may just be coming from my idea of what, Christianity, or what I've been told, Christianity is basically working, the end goal for that is, which is to get basically, to heaven, or to be the best person that you can be when you follow this particular set of rules, in order to be accepted into the kingdom per se.
I see.
And so, but once you don't necessarily know, that by following these particular sets of rules or anything like that, that you're going to get to that one particular kingdom. And once you do find out, you can't come back and tell the rest of us necessarily. But because Christianity doesn't necessarily, as far as from what I know or from what I've read and what I've seen, Christianity doesn't really look or view ancestral veneration or communicating with ancestral spirits as, an option per se. And I could be wrong. The Bible is a very large book, and it's a lot of words. It also
depends on the interpretation of,
exactly,
because you could read something and see it totally different.
Exactly. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I would say that there is a right, or there definitely is a wrong way of doing anything, Chad. But I don't know if I would definitely say for sure that I know that there is a right way. But I do know that there are wrong ways, and there are ways that you can avoid that wrong ways. And the same thing is applicable with Christianity too. I do believe that there are Christians who are doing it the right way, whatever that right way is. But I do believe those are minorities. I've met people who, they're Christians, but their energy is different. It's not about how It's not about them telling me that they're Christians. I can just smell something different about them.
Gotcha.
The way they carry themselves, and it's not a self-righteous carry. Like, look at me, I'm a virgin, and you're not. Because I met them, the trifling ass people who want to say, just because I'm a virgin and you're not a virgin. No,
That's weird.
just because you're a virgin means you had never had
It
dick.
just means you haven't had sex.
Okay,
but,
virgin means you have never had dick. Okay, it does not mean that you are guaranteed to go to heaven. So please sit your self-righteous ass down, okay, and eat your vegetables. But anyway, the way they carry themselves, the way they respect themselves, the way they respect people around them, like their energy is just different. They're on a totally different frequency. It is not ego-driven. Matter of fact, it's a lot of vulnerability and honesty. Like, I've met some of these people who, when they don't know, they admit that they don't know. When they're weak, they admit that they're weak. When they are confused or lost, when it's time to cry, they cry. When it's time to work, they work. Type of situation, right? You understand the essence of being human. Fallibility is inevitable. It's a part of being human. You are bound to make mistakes. You are bound to have anxiety, depression, whatever it is that that nature calls you on, everything considered, right? Likewise, there are people who are able to do that in Islam, and African spirituality and things like that. But then there are people who do the complete opposite, who use Christianity has been used and weaponized for all forms of manners of evil.
Correct.
Same thing with Islam. And don't even get me started with, these two religions, some of the evil and atrocities that they've committed all throughout the globe.
Right.
A lot of people, you just normally just focus on Islam, especially in this part of the world, but they don't realize that Christians have done all kinds of fuck shit as well. The same thing is applicable with African spirituality. There's a lot of people who have dabbled into African spirituality for all the wrong reasons.
Correct.
Okay, because it's all about energy exchange. You put out negative energy out there, it will come back to you. Like, I could curse you out in the name of Jesus, okay? But that is still negative energy that I'm cursing you out with. But does that bring me closer to Jesus? Right. Is that Christ-like? Right. Likewise, somebody could use African spirituality against you, like Braharia, voodoo, whatever it is, like conjure a negative dark entity towards you or whatever. That is still like a choice that they're making. Right. They will reap that repercussion as well. Right. But my point is, it's not all bad, it's not all good. Right. Life is what you make of it. At the end of the day, a lot of these religions or lack of, for example, with African spirituality, conform to the same essence. And you have the power to choose what you do with that or don't do. So before we take off, I do want to ask you, if you could summarize for somebody who doesn't know much about African spirituality, or a skeptic, or a person who may know but they have like that negative, attitude towards like, oh hell no, child. What would you like? Summarize how you would explain African spirituality to them, what it is, advertise it, in the most purest way that comes through your soul. And what it could do for that individual and for all of us as a whole.
I think that I would more so encourage them to sit with themselves and kind of take inventory, or even if you need, make a pros and cons list of all the different ways that your spiritual background or your current spiritual beliefs have shaped you in a positive way, and maybe shaped you in a not so positive way, or just had a less than positive effect on the way that you see the world and the way that you exist, the way that you carry yourself, and the way that you feel the world probably responds to you. Take inventory of that. And then from there, just kind of do your research, of course. And once you have an idea of what you can do that is within your own kind of access, do those things after you've researched it. And I would honestly just say, like, sit with yourself, sit with your spirits, sit with, you don't necessarily like have to build an altar or anything like that. But I would honestly say, like, ask your...
Good.
Okay. Sorry. No, I would honestly just say, like, sit with yourself, sit with your spirits, sit with your ancestors, and just ask them, after you've kind of taken inventory of those things, okay, what has this done for me? And will it continue to lead me or guide me in a way that is progressive, not just for me, but for you all as well? Because at the end of the day, the overall goal should be, in my opinion, or for me personally, where I'm at in my life, the overall goal for me is to be able to offer some healing to myself and to my generation, both past and present. So after you've sat with yourself, after you've taken inventory of all of those things and, made a personal list, whether you make that list in your head or actually a physical list, and you say to yourself and say out loud, is this where we need to be going? Is this what we should be doing? Is this beneficial for us? And then from there, waiting for the answer. Maybe you get it right then. Maybe you get it a week from then. Maybe it comes to you in a dream. However it comes to you, be ready to receive whatever the answer is, and then move accordingly from there.
So they have to be open.
Being open, 1,000%.
It's self. It starts within the self.
Basically,
like you have to really want it,
exactly,
and be open to it.
Just being open to it,
and be open to receive it, whatever form it comes to you.
Exactly.
So, do you also suggest that they go seek a spiritualist or spiritual healers? Do you recommend they do partly that process to be like their research, podcasts, and
the research?
YouTube?
Yes. Podcasts can be dangerous. Getting information from any outside sources can obviously be dangerous. So that's why the first thing I would do, regardless of like how you're feeling, what you feel like your resources may be, whether you feel like you have good resources or not, sit with yourself, talk to your ancestors. They are literally always going to be there, ready and willing to receive whatever message you have for them, and hopefully be willing to also send that message back to you. They're like your spiritual team. So your team should honestly always be working in your favor. Absolutely. It's more so whether or not you're willing to hear them, willing to listen to them, and willing to receive whatever that message might be. If you're not open to it, then
and you have to be in that mind frame as well.
Exactly.
Like if you don't take it serious, you're just wasting your time.
Exactly.
Okay, I see.
And it's not even like, it's something that you've necessarily been close. So I assume that anybody that is looking outside of whatever spiritual practice they've grown up with is already in the state of mind that they're open to receiving a message or open to receiving a different spiritual belief or idea from anywhere other than where they've been getting it from. So it could be something that you've honestly always known, or something that's already been put in front of you that you just didn't realize was the answer. But like I said, just being open to the answer, being open to receiving those messages outside of yourself, doing the research, but also just using that spirit of discernment, being intuitive about it. A lot of times we don't put as much faith into our intuitions as we should, and that kind of trips us up, fucks us up every now and then. But just trusting your instincts and trusting your intuition and trusting those thoughts that are coming to you, because a lot of times they are messages from those that were here before us and have done this before us. So,
okay, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, man. I think you've done a pretty good job breaking it down, because this is all still really new to me, and I'm sure new to a lot of my audience and people watching.
Thank you.
Do you have any plans to visit the motherland anytime soon? Or
I would love to. That would be dope.
What are you waiting for, Chad? Oh, you need a passport, a visa.
I know, and I need to know where to go though.
What are you talking about? There's a whole block of land in the middle of the earth.
I know, but it's not safe for us everywhere. So
yeah, you're right. You know what? You're right. You're right.
I need to know where to go. But I also just need to make sure that like that's an experience that I'm ready for, because I don't know just how overwhelmed I'd be by it.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to it. It's going to happen. It feels inevitable, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. So I know it's going to happen at some point.
Okay.
It's just me being ready for it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, John. I really do
Thank you.
appreciate this, man. Like I said, it's been a long day trying to get all this set up.
I know.
I'm a little sleep deprived, and you know, I got
I
all
get
kinds
it.
of things going on. But thank you so much for joining
you.
today. If you liked what we discussed, please give your comments down below. I want to read your opinions. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell notification so anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. Follow me on social media. My Instagram is UC_images. Facebook is Let's Talk with Uche. And if you want to send an email, give a congratulatory email, or constructive criticism, or share your story, please send me an email at letstalkwithuche@gmail.com. John, do you have any social media platforms you'd like to share?
My Instagram is the number 7THSON92 That's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Until next time.